this is Dr. Anita with another diamond moment. Diamonds are produced through time, heat, and pressure. The areas, the experiences of our lives that have been difficult to move through are many times laden with the diamonds, the value that we need in order to move forward in our lives. So many times we look at things as negative when with just a little bit more evaluation, we can pull out the positives. And that's what we're doing right now. We have for quite a while been asking ourselves tough questions. My mom once told me, to your own self be true, meaning go back and be real with yourself. Do what's necessary for yourself. Be true to who you are. And sometimes that requires us to really reevaluate what we believed up to that point. Do we really believe that our well-being should be determined by someone who has no ability to die our death, and yet they're trying to live our lives? Sometimes our society has taught us to be untrue to who we are in order to get along. Sometimes our families of origin have put unrealistic expectations on us as to who we should care for, who we should be around, who is limited and who is not. But whether our families of origin believe this to be true, do we have to believe it to be true as well? Are we able to deconstruct some of the foundations of our lives in order to find out what is real and true for us as individuals? Or do we continue living our lives limited by people who did not have the experiences or the opportunities that we have today? Are we living our lives according to our great-great-great-grandparents, or are we living our lives according to the information and the knowledge that we have of today, based on a foundation of truth, not on something that was truthfully stated, but something that is actually true? Those are the questions we've been asking ourselves. And I know you're asking me, Dr. Anita, do we really have to go through all of this? And I'd say no, not if you want to stay stuck. If you want to move forward, if you want to have all that your life can provide for you, and you're finding limitations that somehow or another got built in that you don't even know really now or remember how they got there, then yeah, you probably would need to go through some of these tough questions. As I said, some belief systems look at this as shadow work, going back and looking at the limitations, the things that are following us, that are behind us, that we think cannot be seen, but when you look down, there they are. When the light shines in just the right way, you can see it right behind you, connected to you, whether you knew it or not. So again, no, you don't have to go through it. You can skip and not listen, or however you choose to respond to the questions that we're facing. But in the end, if we want to be who we were created to be, if we truly are in that process of becoming, these are some of the questions that we must ask ourselves in order to be true to no one else but us, to be able to reach the highest heights of our own life, because we can't live anyone else's existence, and they don't have the right to try and live ours. We've talked about whether we're experiencing limitations based on the way that we look, our physical characteristics, maybe based on limitations, physical limitations that we actually do have. But do they have to forever define who we are, what we can do, or whether or not we have the ability to move forward in this life. Are our families of origin at the basis of why we may feel inferior to others or have issues with others that we may have never even encountered, but yet we have a built-in prejudice against them, and we've never even met someone like them? Are we going along with what somebody else believes to be true? Or are we living a true experience of our own lives that allow us to determine what is true? Have we been socialized to remove people from our lives? Or is it something that we are fearful of? Are you living in fear of other people? And if you are, please go back and challenge that limiting idea. Have you been taught that all people who come from a particular country are a certain thing, and therefore you are to stand against them? Or are we able to progress beyond that point and make our own determinations of our own lives? As I've stated to you before, no matter what you think about your neighbor, we all live on this ball floating in outer space, and none of us can get off of it. So it would behoove us to be able to understand the other fellow a little better and try to live in harmony with them. Sometimes our preconceived ideas have been handed to us through history, sometimes written history, that is also written so that there is a victor and so that there is a victim. Sometimes our history has been written so that a particular segment of our world can come up on top and others are just innately beneath them. There are movements taking place in our world that say everyone who looks a certain way will forever be marginalized and forever be ostracized. And I would ask you to genuinely challenge those beliefs. When you think about it, it really does not make sense that everyone who has a particular accent, who has a different shade of melanin in their skin, whose hair is different from yours, who may have come from another part of the world, automatically they're inferior? Doesn't even make sense when you really think about it. What do you know about these people? What have you learned about them? What do you know about their culture? What do you know about their lifestyles? Is different wrong, or is different simply different? What they believe may be very akin to what you believe, but they may utilize a different language to express it. Why are you afraid of other people? What has someone done to you that has caused you to be fearful? If you can't answer that question, maybe you're dealing with an antiquated concept, an antiquated idea, and antiquated voices that are speaking to you from a different generation that have adversely influenced you to be fearful of someone that there's nothing to be afraid of. What would happen if that person that you're fearful of ended up being one of the nicest, kindest people you'd ever encountered? Maybe You might grow to like them. Maybe you might grow to love them. And maybe your entire existence on this ball floating in outer space would change. We want to critically evaluate fear and why we feel fearful of others when we have no previous experience that would reinforce this. Anytime we're dealing with irrational fears that we have never encountered an interaction that would have resulted in these fears, we need to go back and look at generational influences and antiquated voices. Maybe we're holding ourselves back from an understanding that would be beneficial moving us forward at this point in time. Maybe it's time for us to look at the way that we feel around others and challenge discomfort, challenge the reasons that we may feel a particular way, and look at them differently. If you have been taught by your family of origin to hold prejudicial thoughts against others, that would be a great place to start. If you have been taught that I'm better than simply because I am, then that would be a great place to start. If you have been taught that the way that I worship is the only way to worship, that might be a really good place to start. If you have been taught limitations in your life, if you have been taught that I don't have because you have, and there's fear in that if we allow you to take your place in this society, there won't be enough for others, that fear-based thought is a great place to start. We can't accept the antiquated voices that teach fear of others and believe that we're supposed to take that forward with us forever. It might be fine. You might feel that, it's no problem. If you are a member of the group who's teaching the fear, but if you are a member of the group who is on the receiving end of the fears, the irrational fears of others, you might see it a little different. Understand this, that no matter where you are, positions can change. Just because you feel that you're on top now does not mean that you will always be. Scripture tells us, be not deceived, God is not mocked. Whatsoever a man sows, that will he also reap. It goes and is akin with that golden rule, do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Think again about the people that you discriminate against. Think again about the people that you're fearful of. Think again about what it would feel like to be on that receiving end of your fear. Think about whether or not what you're experiencing is a generational influence or an antiquated voice coming from yourself or coming from others, and begin to reconstruct your viewpoint of life and society. I hope that this has been a benefit to you. If it has, please visit my website at www.DrAnitaMc.com. Join me on Wisdom as well as on FanBase. We're going to continue moving forward. Becoming is a process.